Getting into the Pokemon trading card game is easier than ever before, but with dozens of products, multiple formats, and thousands of cards to choose from, where do you start? If you're building on a budget, then there's always the trusty theme deck. With a bit of cash and a lot of creativity, you can build something bold and battle ready. You're watching Deck Boss. Hi everyone, and welcome to Deck Boss, the show where we take classic theme decks and give them a competitive tune-up. This week, we're going to try and supercharge the Destruction Fang Theme Deck from Crimson Invasion. Destruction Fang is a theme deck with a lot of promise that delivers very little. As a theme deck, it's got a passable trainer lineup and a wide range of tools, but a subpar deck boss and a slow roll strategy really hurt its competitive prospects. It's not the worst we've seen, but it's definitely a rough one. Now, let's crack this open and meet our deck boss. The Destruction Fang theme deck is built around Hydreigon. This three-headed dragonic disaster is a Stage 2 Pokemon with an ability and one attack. Its ability, Weed Out, lets you select 3 Pokemon on your bench to keep and then discards the rest. Its attack, Dark Destruction, costs 2 dark energy and 1 colorless energy, and it allows you to discard 1 energy from Hydreigon in order to discard 1 from the opposing Pokemon while dealing 120 damage. As far as deck bosses go, Hydreigon is a pretty poor pick. At the very least, it has a decent 160 HP stat, and its ability can let you remove some liabilities from your bench. But the negatives here are pretty significant too. It's a Stage 2, so it's slow to play, Dark Destruction is an expensive attack, and its damage output leaves much to be desired. To make Hydreigon work, we'll need to move heaven and earth. We need to cheat it out quickly, provide it with some serious energy acceleration, and maybe find some way to quickly buff its damage a bit if we can do that as well. And if we can do all that, then Hydreigon might end up being a wee bit more than a Hydra-shaped brick in our deck. Now, let's jump back to the theme deck and see what it gives us to work with. Destruction Fang is a curious toolbox of cards that made it good for all of 5 minutes in the theme deck meta. First up is your Pokemon draw in the form of Beware. It lets you draw 3 cards when you evolve it from Stuffle, which is fine, but it's a one-time use, so we've got better options. Next up is your Pokemon Search in Salazzle, which can search for any 2 cards with its nasty plot attack. But it's a Stage 1 and it requires attacking to actually search, so it's just too slow to use. And you get a Rangaroo, which provides some desperation draw in the form of Instruct, which actually made it a staple card for quite a long time. On the trainer side, things are a mixed bag. Your draw support is limited to Professor Kukui and Sophocles, offering some tepid draw alongside a small damage buff or some handy discard synergy. Your Pokeball package is a bit different than the usual Sun and Moon fare, with Great Ball, Nest Ball, and Timer Ball. Not bad, but not the best. You get some energy preservation in the form of Wishful Baton and EXP Share, which do help to pay for Hydreigon's expensive attack. You also get energy recovery in the form of energy retrieval, which is fine. Rescue Stretcher provides you with some Pokemon recovery in a pinch, which is fairly standard at this point for a Sun and Moon theme deck. And you get some decent mobility with Escape Rope and the good old-fashioned Switch. As for the rest, don't worry about it. Destruction Fang is just so weird. There are a lot of interesting concepts here, and there are kind of the beginnings of an engine, but in every case, you're going to end up saying, but it could be better. It's fine if you want to grab some decent cards that aren't usually in theme decks, but I definitely don't recommend buying 2 like my dumbass did. Singles are an option, kids. That's all I'm going to say on that. And now that we've got the basics, let's jump on over to PTCGO to see how we can make this deck work. Well, I'll be upfront with you guys right now. This is not a budget deck list. I tried quite a few different builds, but nothing can allow Hydreigon to consistently become a threat. It's just not a good card. And This deck doesn't exactly do that either. Instead, it mitigates how rough Hydreigon is by surrounding it with much better attackers and allowing it to fulfill one surprisingly useful niche function. Jumping right in, we've got our main attacker in Greninja and Zoroark Tag Team GX. This thing ramps, allowing you to punch holes in the enemy team with Dark Pulse. You basically buff its damage by 30 for every dark energy that you have in play, and since we play so many ways to cheat energy into play, this actually becomes quite overwhelming pretty quickly. Galarian Moltres V is our other big attacker, and it's a very welcome addition from the recent Chilling Reign set. Its ability allows you to attach a dark energy from your discard pile to it once per turn, providing an easy buff for Greninja and Zoroark, or allowing itself to threaten a big 190 damage attack as soon as your first turn if you hit a lucky max elixir or a dark patch. Darkrai GX is another means of cheating energy into play. Once per turn, if it's in the discard pile, you can resurrect it to your bench and attach dark energy from the discard pile to it. You rarely attack with it, and it really is just here to give Greninja and Zoroark a quick damage buff, if we're being honest. Mew allows you to copy the attack of any basic Pokemon in play, as long as you can pay the energy cost. It gives you a much better prize trade if you want to use Dark Pulse, and it gives you some means of hitting fighting decks for weakness, which is obviously really important given how many dark Pokemon we play. It's also a free retreater, which is always nice. And then we've got a thick support Pokemon lineup of 2 Dedenne GX, 2 Crobat V, and Tapu Lele. The combination of these three allow you to tear through your deck, hitting the resources that you need pretty much every turn. And while these usually end up being liabilities on the bench, basically making Boss's Orders or Guzma read take 2 prizes, they can actually be removed with Hydreigon's Weed Out ability, keeping your bench space free to slap down more of them, or maybe resurrect a Darkrai as needed. Onto the supporter lineup, we're keeping things thin with 3 Cynthia, 2 Research, and 1 N. Since we play a full set of Versus Seeker and all those draw Pokemon, you're hardly ever going to be in want of cards. These are just enough, I find, for every situation, in particular the N, which really allows you to hamper your opponent's ability to follow up if you happen to fall behind. And of course we've got a Guzma to enable some gusting. And it's particularly handy here because our means of accelerating energy are largely limited to accelerating to the bench, and obviously, you need a way to get stuff into the active. Our ball search is a pretty strict 4-3 split of Quick Ball and Ultra Ball. Mostly, Quick Ball is what you're prioritizing to search out a key attacker or a draw support Pokemon, but Ultra Ball allows you to potentially dump an extra energy or a Darkrai, so it's helpful to have that there too. And now comes the really spicy stuff, which is our energy acceleration. Dark Patch and Max Elixir are like nitrous oxide for this deck, allowing you to flood the field with dark energy from either the deck or the discard pile. Now, you have to understand that every successful hit of these cards is essentially an extra 30 damage for Dark Pulse, and with the ability to draw a ton of cards and, thin the deck out, ensuring that Max Elixir hits multiple times during one turn, ensuring that we dump a lot of dark energies to get back with Dark Patch, you can hit for some pretty huge damage in one turn. And these also are able to guarantee that you have a follow-up attacker for when your first Greninja and Zoroark goes down. Dangerous Drill is a nice way of dumping the often bricky Hydreigon pieces to clear an annoying stadium, tool, or special energy. We play Black Market Prism Star to help fix the prize trade, forcing our opponent to potentially go through 2 tag teams and something else in order to take the game. It's also very handy for taking the sting out of having something stuck in the active, potentially making a KO by the enemy insignificant, at least for a turn or 2. Dark City is there to give a free floatstone effect to all of our dark basics, which is most of our Pokemon. You can retreat a heavily damaged Pokemon to the bench, bring up a fresh attacker, or even retreat and weed something out to potentially take a big KO off the board from the opponent. It's also just nice when you whiff the attack, but you don't want your big guys stuck in the active to take a hit, so there's always that. and we still play 2 Floatstones because you won't always have Dark City in play, and because you actually have more bad starts in this deck than good ones. 9 times out of 10, I'm finding, you're either starting a draw support Pokemon or a Deino, and you really need them to get out of the way for Greninja and Zoroark to start blowing stuff up, so having the extra outs for a retreat is really handy. And finally, we play a healthy count of 12 Dark Energy. You need to hit your max elixirs, and you need to load your discard pile for Dark Patch and Galarian Moltres, so you can't be too precious about your count here. Being stingy is not the way to go. You also just need to have a lot in play in order for Greninja and Zoroark to do things like blow up tag teams in one hit. 7 in play is the magic number most of the time, or 8 if your opponent is a little bit thicker like a Reshiram and Charizard Tag Team GX. And that's the list. No, it's not exactly a casual upgrade to a classic theme deck, but I'll be damned. You get desperate after losing a lot in testing, and sometimes a card is so bad that it takes ridiculous measures to help even the field for it. And honestly, even with the skeleton of a powerful Turbo Dark deck, Hydreigon is just such a brick, and it still hurts more than it helps. Still, it's a list, it works, and in my desperation to make this card at least serviceable, I am past worrying about budget or much else, to be honest. So, with that pessimistic POV burned into our mind's eye, let's jump onto the expanded ladder and see if we can scrape at least one win with Hydreigon. Oh lord, I can't tell you what it took to get a decent match with this bloody deck boss. Hydreigon is such a cool Pokemon, but it got stuck with such a rough card this time around. The fact that you basically need to cram the theme deck lineup, the theme deck ratio of Hydreigon into a Turbo Dark deck just to make it passable should tell you everything that you need to know about how rough this card really is. Stage 2s are a hard sell as it is these days, and when they do get played, they really need to have an immediate impact on the game. But I'll be damned if Hydreigon manages to make its presence felt at all. Its attack is just too expensive for not enough damage or benefit. These days, Stage 2s either have a really cheap attack with big damage, accelerate energy to themselves in some way, or provide a very valuable and immediate boon to their teammates by being there. Hydreigon does none of those things. By the time you get this thing ready to roll, you're going to be 3 prizes behind at the very least, and you're not exactly trading well with a 120 damage attack for 3 energy to really make it worth it and, help you catch up. So really, without resorting to extreme measures, there's just no way this thing can take on even the more casual Pokemon V and GXs, let alone other 1-prizers. And honestly, with its low damage output, it's just not getting the job done on its own most of the time anyway. Even against some 1-prizers, against other Stage 2s, you are not trading well. But hey, they can't all be winners, and sadly, as cool as Hydreigon is as a Pokemon, this particular rendition of the Pokemon in the TCG just doesn't make the cut. This is honestly one of those times where I've just got to say, pass this one up. Buy the deck if you're going to keep it sealed, maybe crack it open for the lulz during an extremely casual match, but otherwise, leave it be. There are better decks out there, and much better deck bosses, and that's really all I have to say on that. And with that wee rant over, I'm going to go and look around for some more workable decks to play with. My ELO has basically tanked, and I'm seeing hops and hows flying left and right, so I kind of need to grind my way back up so that we can get some much better matches in whatever episode comes out next. I've of course got a few more episodes of Deck Boss in the pipeline, with a number of similarly dubious deck bosses to test out, but I am also keen to explore a few more fan-favorite archetypes like I did with Night March. Either way, whatever comes out next will be a bit of a palate cleanser from this week's shenanigans. Now, I do have to say, I am actually kind of curious to know what you guys think of this week's deck boss. Now, I did a lot of research. I tried everything I could to make this work. I looked around like crazy, but outside of some gimmicks that don't really fly in an era of 300 plus HP Titans, I just couldn't find a way to really make this card shine. So, I don't know, maybe I missed something. If you guys have any idea about how to make this triple disaster of a card work, I am more than keen to know. Leave your concepts, or your deck lists if you are so keen, in the comments section below. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. And as for the rest, you know the drill. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, I will catch you all next time. Take it easy.